and welcome to the Cash vs. Trash podcast with your hosts, Rob and
Demi, where we watch the highest and lowest grossing movie of each year from 1970 to 2021 picked at random, then decide if they deserve the title of either Cash or Trash.
That's right. And this week, we're looking at the highest grossing movie of 2007, Pirates of the Caribbean. I don't know what happened there.
Were you going to say Captain America?
I was going to say, like, Caribbean something? I don't know. Oh, yeah, anyway, we'll just roll on through. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, the third movie in the franchise. It's an American swashbuckling adventure. It's everyone probably knows about this movie.
Very popular franchise.
Very, very popular franchise. Yeah. It was the biggest thing on earth there for a while. Starring Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow.
You'll recognize Johnny Depp from Edward Scissorhands or Cry Baby.
Or the defamation trial that's going on.
Yeah, or the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp.
Yeah, at time of recording anyway.
Yeah.
Who knows, in a few weeks. Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Swann.
She's in Pride and Prejudice and... What?
She's in what?
Pride and Prejudice? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, you said prejudice.
Well, how do you say it?
Prejudice.
Prejudice.
You mixed up the D and the J.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's all good.
Pride and Prejudice and Atonement.
Mm-hmm. And Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah.
Can't forget that. Orlando Bloom as Will Turner.
He is most famous for his role in the Lord of the Rings trilogy and a movie called Troy.
Mm-hmm. Written and directed by Gore Verbinski, famous for Rango and The Mexican.
Rango is such a good movie.
Oh, he did that right after this.
Yeah.
A few years later, because, animation takes a while. And 10 out of 10.
Such a good movie. Anyway, the budget of this movie was around $300 million. Domestically, it grossed $309 million. Internationally, it grossed $652 million. So worldwide total of about $960 million.
Mm-hmm. At the time, the most expensive movie ever made at the time.
Yeah.
It's only been topped by
Endgame.
Yeah, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Age of Ultron, and there was one other thing.
Yeah, but it's still in like the top 5, I think, of most expensive movies.
Yeah, it's around the top 5 or so, yeah.
In its opening weekend alone, it grossed $114 million.
Mm-hmm.
It was released to 4,362 theaters and had a 31-week run.
Now, is that domestic or worldwide with the theaters?
It didn't say. I imagine that's just domestic.
Yeah, even still.
Yeah.
And we get our information from boxofficemojo.com and thenumbers.com a little bit, just for corroboration.
Yeah. It was rated 44% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 72% audience rating.
Not surprising at all.
I would have thought it got higher.
I think that makes sense to me because, like critics, said it was convoluted and went for too long and all that sort of thing, but praised it for its action and acting and stuff, which is, probably what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But audiences would have liked it because a critic, and that's a mindset we sort of try to get into, will look at the movie on its own, which is something we really strive to do. But if you're going to go to the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie, you've
probably seen the first two as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably know everything about what's going on. It was really weird to step back into this having not watched the first two in so long, or this one in so long. And there was a lot of things that I thought happened in this that actually happened in the second one.
So obviously this one was number 1, top grossing. Number 2 was Harry Potter 5. Number 3 was Spider-Man 3. Number 4 was Shrek the Third. 5 was Transformers. 6 was Ratatouille. That deserves to be higher. 7 was I Am Legend. 8 is The Simpsons movie. And 9, National Treasure 2. And number 10 was 300.
So big year for movies.
Yeah.
I was turning 12 in 2007, and this was... I have seen every single movie on this list. Most of them, actually. I've seen every single movie on this list more than once. Some of them more than like 5 times. Yeah. So...
I've seen most of these movies.
What haven't you seen?
I haven't seen 300
What?
or I Am Legend.
I know you wouldn't like 300, but it is good. And I Am Legend, I think you'd like.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it, to be
me
honest.
too. I've heard people talk about it, and I've seen like clips from it, but I haven't watched the whole movie.
Great movie. Just shit ending. Really, yeah. Spoilers, I guess, sorry.
So At World's End, like we said before, is the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie. In this swashbuckling adventure, Will and Elizabeth return to save Jack Sparrow and are aided by Captain Barbossa to unite the pirates against the East India Company led by Lord Cutler Beckett, who also has control of Davy Jones.
It took us a while. Davy Jones. It took us a while to fit the summary of this movie into a couple of sentences. Yeah. Because it does go for 2 hours and 50 minutes, 50, with credits. And there is an end of credits stinger, or I think that's what you call it, scene.
Yeah.
Doesn't really set up anything, but, you know, and you feel it in some places, but not in a really bad way, I think.
No. I think it's an appropriate time length, even though it is long. You just have to be in the mood for it.
I think there are things that they could cut out, and apparently they did. Oh, was it this? They did cut out, I think.
Yeah, a little bit, but not
they cut
too
out
much.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know in China they cut out like almost all of Chow Yun Fat's scenes. That's another person I forgot to write down. They cut out almost all of Chow Yun Fat's scenes because they saw him as a racist depiction. And I'm like, he's a bloodthirsty evil pirate. Like,
Yeah.
I get maybe they don't like the stereotype, but this whole movie is just stereotypical pirates running around.
Exactly.
It didn't make a great deal of sense to me, but
anyway.
I mean, what else are you going to expect from China?
The China can do what they want.
The China.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all that this was the highest grossing.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Dead Man's Chest, the one before this, directly the year before it. These are a part 1 and part 2, sort of. Not as much as, say, like, well, Kill Bill part 1 and 2, they're labelled as such, but not even as much as Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
I think that those directly, like, you have to have seen Infinity War for Endgame to make sense. But even knowing, you know, what happened at the end of Dead Man's Chest, going into At World's End, there was never, and I forgot most of this movie.
Yeah, me
other
too.
than the start and the end and a couple of bits in the middle. I forgot all the betrayals and the deals and all that sort of stuff. But I had no trouble following it on.
Yeah, no,
following
me neither.
it along, sorry.
Yeah, there was a lot that happened in this movie, but again, it is a pirate movie, and you've got so many characters to follow.
I forgot to write it all down, and we'll talk more about it in spoilers, although who hasn't seen this bloody movie? I think we say that
every time
it's the highest grossing.
Except for when it's the lowest grossing.
But I was going to write down like the list of backdoor deals and betrayals one by one, but I think I can remember them.
There's a lot.
Yeah, just to try and keep track of it all.
But that's what pirates do.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. I mean, that's they do that. They murder. They're like just horrible people. But in this, they're kind of seen as honorable, which it's a fictional world, so they get away with it.
It's a movie. You let it slide. You get in the zone and the mindset.
They're definitely not trying to be historical.
No.
You know, they have historical elements, you know, like the East India Company or East India Trading Company. I've seen it called both. That was a real thing. It was pretty much a nation of its own. It was the first, well, maybe not the first, but one of the big notes of like a company just ruling parts of the world. It was very strange. And yeah, I mean, this is, if you've ever seen a pirate movie before, it's all those sorts of themes, you know, piracy is on the way out. So it's basically like a cowboy movie, but on the water.
Ocean.
Yeah. They're very similar. That's all I have to say without too many spoilers.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. One thing, and I'll probably bring it up again later, but I do really like, I guess, the theme of this movie of, you know, there's these old legends and gods and monsters in the past, and like as time has gone on, mankind, and this is a pretty common thing, but they do it really well here, I think, where mankind is just slowly cutting down all of everything that's different. You know what I mean? And without spoiling too much, it just, there's a certain sadness to it of, like Jack Sparrow has a line in the movie where Barbossa says, the world's getting smaller, and he says, no, the world's still the same. There's just less in it. There's just less in it. Yeah. Thanks for jumping in.
No worries.
I was struggling to remember. But...
Yeah, I could see that. Luckily, I'm here.
That's the only reason why this isn't a one-man podcast, is because I needed somebody to just push everything back onto the road.
Yeah, to come in and remind you what you were talking about.
Because I will absolutely just veer off the road, go bush bashing for a while. Yeah, that's all I have to say, non-spoiler wise. Anything you have to report?
I'll save it.
All right.
Save it for the spoilers. Yep.
All right. As per usual, you'll have a chance, you know, you'll hear the music, and after that, it's full spoilers. We will not hold back. So, fucking deal with it. We're in spoilers now, and as nobody listening has never not seen this, I did too many negatives. Everybody listening has seen this movie, so everybody knows that Davy Jones gets stabbed right in his filthy fucking heart. Davy
Jones. I just feel like saying that whenever his name is mentioned.
Like Tia
saying
Dalma
it like
says
that,
it.
yeah.
Davy Jones. Do you fear death? Davy Jones is underused in this movie, I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel that way because my memories are mostly of him in the second one. And then in this, he's just like sassy and kind of flustered most of the time. Speaking of Davy Jones, looks fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
He looks like an octopus man.
Yeah, most of the time, you're not even thinking that he's not an actual octopus man.
No.
And, like, that's just a credit to either or both Industrial Lights and Magic, or ILM, who did 750 VFX shots, and Digital Domain, who did 300 VFX shots. So... see, every bit of CGI you see in this movie, I don't know about the other ones, was them. They made this movie look fantastic.
So good.
There's not any... There was maybe one half a second scene where I was like... And that's when one of the bits where Jack flips around on a thing, and the way he yanks back looked a little bit unnatural, but... it was less than a second.
Yeah.
And every single other moment in this movie looks fantastic.
Yeah, the CGI in this movie is flawless.
Absolutely. As is the costuming, the art design, the set design. Everything about the way that this movie looks is spot on.
They just committed 110% to everything.
The only thing, the fact that Elizabeth Swann and most of the time Orlando Bloom and kind of Jack as well, Johnny Depp. Elizabeth Swann especially though looks like a golden princess.
Yeah, she's always so clean and pristine.
Every moment in this movie, she is so clean. She has got a full face of makeup on. Her hair isn't really in her face too much. She looks perfect as, and every single other character looks like they're having a bad day.
Yeah, they're dirty, like everything down to the fingernails and eyeballs in this movie they thought of and committed to. It's insane. But Elizabeth Swann just looks like a beautiful princess the whole time.
Yeah, and obviously Keira Knightley is a very attractive woman. I think that the three leads are all very attractive people.
Yes,
you can't really argue that. I mean, Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley, and and Orlando Bloom. I think was also a model for a time.
Yeah, he was in his prime years when these movies were being made.
All right, settle down.
What? He was.
Just the way you said prime, you're like, Orlando Bloom was in his prime years.
They all were. Especially Keira Knightley. I think she's so gorgeous.
Yeah, she was quite young here, I think. I don't have any of the ages in front of me, but I think that she was... Oh, she would have been no older than 30, surely?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
She's only 37 now.
So she wasn't 30 then?
No.
Because it was 2007.
She was in her 20s.
I'm not going to do the maths. But yeah, she was quite young. I think that timeline-wise for the movies, she's meant to be older. Because she can't go from somebody who can't use a sword, or not really, in the first movie, and then like a year or two later be crazy good with the sword in this movie. I think that the gap between the first and the second one is about a year or so, because, you know, we'll get into it when we eventually do the episode on the second one. But, you know, I think it's about a year or two even, and then the gap between the second and third one is at least a year, because she goes from being pretty good with the sword in the second one to she's just holding her own, fending off pirates and sailors and soldiers and whatever.
Yeah, she's like on par with the other pirates with fighting.
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
much. Yeah.
So
as well as CGI,
just got way off track talking about them.
As well as the CGI being amazing in this movie, they also made most of the ships and the designs and the architecture.
Yeah, well, that's with that set design. They built like half ships or just like segments, and then they went into a warehouse and they'd film the scenes in front of a green screen and all that. And then obviously some shots I think are in water, in pools, and all that. Like the underwater scene, that's an actual stunt.
Yep.
They didn't really flip a ship, but they got everyone to take a synchronized breath, and they all went down, held it for as long as they could, got all the shots. Even Pintel and Righetti, played by Lee Arenberg and Mackenzie Crook, respectively, they actually got tied upside down on the mast, and they said it was pretty scary, but, you know, all the safety measures were put in place, and they felt as safe and comfortable as you can be when you're tied up underwater.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. That's, you know, a lot of people will go on and on and on about how, like, Davy Jones looks, but I think we should save that for when we eventually do the second movie, because there's a few little things that we were really interested in. There's not too much in this movie that I'm like, wow, that looks so crazy and cool. I wonder how they did that, because I'm like, oh, it's CGI.
Yeah.
But the stuff like the going underwater, and not to discredit CGI. I just mean, I didn't wonder.
Yeah, because we knew beforehand.
Yeah.
And also, like, duh.
Yeah, there's no way that it could be real. There's no way that they actually sailed 2 ships into a maelstrom and sunk one of them.
Why not?
I mean, maybe. Who knows?
No, they didn't.
Another thing that I didn't really think too much about, but when I found out about it, I was like, oh, that's cool as the scene where Jack is talking to, like, the little angel and little devil, sort of.
On his shoulders,
his two, one's telling him to do one thing, one's telling him to do another thing. That was all done practically and then CGI'd in, I should say, where they got Johnny Depp to climb onto giant dreadlocks and swing around and talk, and then they minimized it. And,
that's hilarious. I love that they made, like, giant dreadlocks.
And the commitment for that. You know, they could just have him awkwardly just be in space on his shoulder, but I think that's a much better way of doing it.
Yeah.
Just like when he's in the locker, he filmed all of those little bits, everything you see him doing. I think some things might be like digital doubles or body doubles, just to when it doesn't need to be Johnny Depp.
Well, they said that he filmed every variation of Jack Sparrow in that
was
scene.
Like 50.
Yeah.
And there's all ones in the background. That's why I think that there might be digital doubles. If there's 2 like that were climbing up the netting or whatever the hell it's called. Yeah. I'm not a sailor. I have no idea. I reckon that's maybe he did film that, but then they made a digital double.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
But he acted out most of those.
He did
those
at
variations.
least a dozen, if not 2 dozen, that you can see.
Yeah.
And film scenes with himself and all that, and you don't even bat an eye to it.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny Depp is just
amazing.
And it's an amazing effect.
Yeah.
That they're all just on top of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of that was done like in camera. Whereas one thing that actually was CGI, but it was really interesting the way they did it, when Calypso is transformed back into her godly form, and she transforms into all the crabs and falls down. They did that with so many 10,000 or so. I think they're like ping pong table tennis
just
balls.
Little plastic balls.
Yeah, and I think they had like the blue on them.
Yeah.
And then they just dropped them onto a ship with all the cast actually there.
Yeah.
And then that's why all their reactions are sort of real. And then, you know, some of them play around with like pretending they're getting bitten or not bitten,
snapped.
Snapped.
Snip snapped. Snip snap.
It's close enough. And there was a lot of, you know, CGI, but then just layered, or not even, it wasn't actually CGI, I'm totally off the mark there. Not CGI. But they layer over shots. Yeah. I think that's what they did to help Johnny Depp with filming the scenes against himself. But also, they filmed the scene of where Beckett dies, where he's walking down the steps of the ship.
Iconic shot.
Yeah, and the
ship is just exploding around him.
Yeah, and he's not even
phased.
Yeah, he's just in his own world. He's just like, yeah, they beat me.
Yeah, that's like, I can't do anything now.
Because he's not, you never see him fight anyone. He's not that kind of guy. He's he seems like a big wimp. Yeah. He's just really smart. And as soon as they outmaneuver him, he just goes, oh, they beat me. Yeah. Just
gives up pretty much.
Yeah, and all the sailors under his command are so, I guess, militarized that they need that chain of command, that they don't go, let's fire back.
I know,
they just freak out and then abandon ship.
Because even if they were, like, they were getting pummeled by the other 2 ships, but you could have at least fired what you had as well to damage people who are killing you.
If they had fired back, they probably could have sunk both of those ships. Those ships had a normal amount of cannons. The Endeavour had
a lot.
probably twice as many as most.
Yeah,
it was huge.
It was just all cannons.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shot where he's walking down the stairs and the ship is exploding around him. They filmed, firstly, him walking down with nothing happening. And then after that, they filmed the ship.
And they had somebody counting for him.
Yeah.
So he was doing his steps at the right pace.
Yeah.
And everything like that. And then they used, was it a crane or something like that? I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the camera system that they used, but it was set up to do the exact identical movements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then they just actually blew it up with explosives.
Yeah.
And then just layered him walking on top of that.
Yeah.
And it just,
so good.
Fantastic. Chef's kiss.
Such a good shot.
There's so many good things in this movie.
Yeah, that is true.
Speaking of, every single actor, actress, whatever you want to call any of the people in this movie, the cast, there is not one single person who does not do a fantastic job.
That's right. They all do amazingly.
Yeah. I can't think of a single performance in this that I wasn't just in the world.
Yeah.
Nobody spoke in a way that took me out of it. Nothing. And then, that is to the credit of the director and the art design and everything like that. But
they cast this movie just perfectly.
Yeah. And I know that, you're stuck with your main cast, but that's not a bad thing. Not stuck with in a bad way, but the new characters in this movie
are also perfectly cast.
Not that there's that many really new big characters, other than Xiao Fang, played by Chow Yun Fat. And I don't know his character's name, but Reggie Lee, his second in command.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Brethren Court, but they're barely in it. Captain Teague, played by Keith Richards, who Johnny Depp was actually inspired by Keith Richards and his mannerisms and speech patterns and everything when he first started playing Captain Jack.
Yeah.
And Captain Teague, as played by Keith Richards, was supposed to appear in Dead Man's Chest, but they couldn't work it out with scheduling. But it works better in this. It's a much more natural... Yeah, he's the keeper of the code and all that.
Yeah.
Just to round off the cast list, Jeffrey Rush returns as Captain Barbossa. Jack Davenport returns as Norrington. Bill Nighy returns as Davy Jones. Jonathan Pryce is Weatherby Swan, Elizabeth's father. Pintel and Rigetti, as I said before, are Lee Arenberg and Mackenzie Crook. Gibbs is played by Kevin McNally. Bootstrap by Stellan Skarsgård. Cutler Beckett is Tom Hollander. So there's Tom Holland and then Tom Hollander. He's just a little bit more Holland. And Tia Dama / Calypso. Played by, I think it's Naomi or Naomi. I don't know. Harris.
Yeah.
Everybody is fantastic.
She is amazing in this movie.
Probably one of only a few of these that, and maybe it's because she's not as, now she's a bit bigger, but not as a huge name, that I was never like, oh, Jeffrey Rush is doing a good job here, or Johnny Depp, or Orlando Bloom, or Keira Knightley. I was just like, fucking Tia Dama is so bizarre. And, then she's revealed as Calypso. I don't know if it's revealed in the second one, but in this, in the context of this, she's revealed as Calypso, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's Calypso. That's a goddess. Cool.
Yeah.
Everybody, pinpoint accuracy, fantastic. And that's just the main-ish cast. It's a huge cast.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the other 7 or including Chow Yun Fat's character. I should have said him, but I did before. The Brethren Court, or Mercer, who's one of Cutler Beckett's lackeys, and a handful of other characters. It's a huge cast. Yeah. And
all amazing actors.
Yeah, no weak links.
No.
When can you ever say that?
I know, right?
Do you want to give that one another go?
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody just commits so hard, and like Johnny Depp said, he put so much of himself into that character, and I think, other people can probably say the same. Maybe they didn't commit as hard as him, but they just made the characters their own, and it's so believable.
I think the three standouts for me were Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, and Bill Nighy. Because, sorry, where, like, it's very much like that, like The Office, where Jim and Pam are the leads, and Michael is the foil. In this, Will and Elizabeth are the leads, and Jack is the foil. He's the face of the show, the movies, same as Michael is the face of the show of The Office.
Yeah.
But he's allowed to be wacky and do all that stuff while they're a bit more serious. And everybody's over the top.
Yeah.
Like everybody's...
Well, they're pirates.
Yeah, but even the sailors and everyone it's all dialed up to 11.
Yeah.
And it's all stereotypes, and it's great in the best way, because it is a fictionalized world.
Yeah.
I think that if this was trying to be historical, and you didn't have a goddess and an octopus man and like a crew that is for fish people, and that, it would be weird that they're also over the top.
Yeah.
But it works really well in this, I think.
This movie is dramatic and over the top in the best way. And it's the reason why the movie is so fun. And it really, puts you there with them.
Absolutely. You are just dipping into this world for a big adventure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Me too.
You can tell all the cast get along well outside of this. They bounce off each other so well. There's cool little moments. I had it in writing, but I think that in as far as acting goes, I think it belongs more to the actors as opposed to the story. There's a bit early on where Chow Yun-fat's character Sao Fang is gonna kill Will Turner, and Elizabeth just gives it away. She's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And Barbosa doesn't. His facial expression does not change.
Yeah.
Because he just does not care. He's we're in spoilers, so get over it. He's been returned from the dead. He died at the end of the first one, so if you skip the second one, you're just going to be like, oh, okay. But they explain it. But at the start, you're just like, okay, he's here. Cool.
Yeah.
But he is, and it's something that when you're a kid, because like I said, I was 11 when I watched this. You don't really realize how much of a piece of shit everyone is in these movies.
Everyone is, just mean, and they only care about themselves.
Yeah, Barbosa isn't a good guy. He's probably doing the most good out of everyone in this movie, but he's still just doing it for himself.
Yeah.
He's trying to free Calypso because if he doesn't, she'll just kill him.
Yeah.
And then... he's free to do whatever he wants and probably just go be an evil pirate again. And Jack is just trying to get on to the next adventure and try and live a little bit longer. And, he's tossing up whether or not being immortal at the price of never really doing what you want is worth it. And
Will is trying to release his father or save his father.
Or... do what he really wants to do, which is leave his father behind and be with Elizabeth. Yeah. And he's got like the traditional hero's dilemma. But even Elizabeth is just like, we'll just keep moving this along and we'll fend off everyone and they can all bugger off. And I think she starts off a little bit more hopeful. And then at the end, she's just like, up yours, everyone.
Yeah. It's really just fend for yourself territory out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of to the point where the only difference between the good guys and the bad guys is the good guys aren't trying to do evil things. They're just trying to live their lives and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Whereas the bad guys actively are seeking out to imprison or kill other people for not really any proper point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good guys. It's
yeah.
like they're all together and they work together, but at any point, they could just shoot each other and they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Jack and Barbosa clearly have like this strong kinship because they, Barbosa was his first mate, but he betrayed him, and they had adventures together, and they've been up against each other, but they could snap and kill each other at any time, but also they clearly respect each other greatly, even if they are constantly up against each other.
Yeah.
And
they also don't hold anything against each other, really. Like when they all have the gun circle. I don't know if that was inspired by The Office or if The Office was inspired by them, but
I think it's a pretty common thing.
It was like exactly like that episode where they're all standing there. Anyway, and they have the guns pointed at each other, and then, they try to shoot, but it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, if somebody did that to me afterwards, I'd be like, you try to shoot me. But they just forget about it.
Yeah,
because that's just normal.
Yeah, in this world, that's just every day.
Yeah.
Like, when they go to the Brethren Court and they're just freaking out, and Elizabeth is like, what is going on? And they're like, oh, this is just... This is how it works. Yeah. We don't need to talk too much about the directing because, like, Gore Verbinski's great. He's really good at making scale and pacing things and all that. But with this, I'm like, how hard could it be when... And I'm not trying to discredit the guy, but how hard could it be when everything looks so good? Everybody... And I suppose that is the mark of a good director. You are just the... I suppose conductor's the same thing, but you are just the driver of the vehicle, and you are making sure that every little bit operates the way it should. So I guess that is the mark of a good director, and that he's done a great job here, where all the CGI is done 10 out of 10, all the stunts, all the acting, the set design, the costuming, the makeup, the art design, the writing, the editing, the score, everything.
Yeah.
I cannot find anything that is actually really wrong with this movie.
No, me neither.
Yeah. Maybe some things in like the story, but it's still fantastic.
For the most part, everything is appropriate, and everything just works all together.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, editing, you did point out, and I sort of noticed it, but didn't really worry too much about it. When they go to that random island before Sao Fang comes and reveals that he's betrayed him, or that Will betrayed him, I should say, there's just a random shot of Pintel and Ragetti flipping their boat.
Yeah, being crashed by the waves.
Yeah, but you don't see anybody else, so it just looks like they were the only ones there, and then all of a sudden everybody else is on the beach.
Yeah, that was weird, but...
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know if I could really point out any bits where I was like, hey, what was that about?
There was one bit, and I don't know if it's editing, writing, whatever, but when Jack uses leverage, remembers what Will taught him in the first movie, to pop his way out of the brig, and then he runs off, and then it just stays with the three other Jacks for a bit, and one of them the one who was in the wall drops his brain, and I was like, yeah, that's funny, but like this movie goes for nearly 3 hours.
Yeah.
That 3-second little joke, I don't think needed to be there. If you were going to have that, maybe have that while the real Jack is still there. But I mean, the movie goes for nearly 3 hours, and we could find maybe 6 seconds that we were like, eh.
Yeah.
So, not bad.
More than not bad.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, considering the movie goes for 3 hours, that's not really too much of a problem. And, I mean, now that we've got through that, we can... Here's all the things about the story and everything that we did like, which is all but those 6 seconds.
Yeah.
We might find some things when we talk about it that weren't as good, but you never know until you really start talking about it, I think.
And like, when we're watching these movies, we're trying to be nitpicky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watch it once without taking, or sometimes without taking notes. Sometimes we think of funny jokes or whatever, or things that we don't want to forget, but we try to, because, the whole point of this is like we were going to watch it in theaters because it's about the box office and all that sort of stuff. We try not to go on our phones, which is pretty easy for most of these movies. I think the only one that I was on my phone much for was The Choice, because I wrote about 50 jokes that most of them we couldn't use because they were too filthy. Then we watch it another time and we take notes and we try to pick it apart as we're watching it.
Yeah, so the first time we're just watching it, and then the second time we're trying to pay more attention and notice things and write things down.
Yeah. Thanks for summarizing.
No worries.
And that way we get to enjoy the movie, and then we get to criticize it and take it apart. I found myself not taking that many notes and having to remind myself to write something down that I remembered because I was so engaged.
I was going to say the exact same thing, yeah. Like, I was watching the movie and I was like, oh, crap, I'm supposed to be writing things down. But also, there wasn't a lot to write down because you are just so engrossed in the movie. There's not really any times where it takes you out or... Yeah.
And I mean, it's right from the start. The opening scene, obviously, and it can be hard to remember by the end of the movie. But this movie opens with, like, hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds, of people being hanged to death.
Yeah,
including
so many.
A little boy.
Yeah.
Looks like he's maybe 10.
10, yeah.
Yeah.
10 to 12.
And he starts singing Hoist the Colours, and he has a coin in his hand, and excellent. I didn't fully get it. Like, they said it later on, but I didn't, like, really fully process it, and then I read it, and I was like, oh, yeah, of course, but I still understood that by singing that, and that's what Cutler Beckett wanted. See, that's the weird thing. He wants, like, the modern world to come in and take over, but he's just so accepting of the magic of this world, where they can sing Hoist the Colours while the boy's holding a coin, and it makes every single piece of 8 have, like, a hum to it.
Yeah.
So when Barbossa flicks it to Sao Fang, he can hear the ringing. And that represents that, or maybe it's only the pirate lords, I don't know, but it represents that pirates are being hanged and they need to do something about it.
Yeah,
it's just such a fascinating world to me.
That's insane.
That can happen, and that's just common knowledge. But I thought that at first when he's like, oh, they're singing, and Cutler Beckett says, finally, I thought that was him being like, they're admitting that they're pirates.
Yeah, I didn't think it meant what it meant. Yeah.
But
I thought he was just being evil, really. Like, he was like, ha ha ha.
He is crazy evil.
He is evil, yeah.
More so, like, I always really like a businessman villain because you always hate them.
Yeah.
Because, like, a Davy Jones or a Captain Barbossa, they're so much fun because it's like...
They have character.
Yeah, they're fully in the world and they're like, ha, and swinging their swords around and they're loving it.
Yeah.
But this guy's just like, I don't have time for this shit. I'm just going to wipe all of this stuff off the map and then we can get rid of pirates and then we'll rule the world. I don't care. He doesn't really take any pleasure in it. That's why when he loses at the end, he doesn't try to fight back. Yeah. Because he's like, oh, I've lost. It's over.
He's like stepping into another world that he isn't that familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, great opening and very sad and somber, and it's like things are at their lowest. And I think that shows really well in this, but then for the rest of the movie, it's just yo ho and a bottle of rum and everybody's loving it. Yeah. So like we were saying before with that's shown really well. Obviously show don't tell always should be what you always do, but when there are cases where you have to give exposition, which an exposition isn't a bad thing. For those who don't know, exposition is or a scene where somebody gives exposition is like, you have a character see something and go, what's that? And then somebody goes, oh, that thing you saw is this, and this is why that's happening, and it comes from here. You know, it's just explaining the world.
Yeah, it doesn't let you think for yourself.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing. Because sometimes you have to have, well, you pretty much always have to have exposition, and it's not always possible to purely show. And sometimes by having a character say something, that is in a way showing, because they're the ones who stepped in and said it. Like when Pintel and Ragetti are whinging about why Tiadama can't just bring Jack back from the dead because she did with Barbosa. She's there and she's like, because him was just dead, not in Davy Jones's locker. So hard to do her voice.
Yeah, I think she's the only person that can do it.
And, you know, she explains, she doesn't fully explain it, but she's very poetic about it.
Yeah.
And in that scene, you also see that everybody else, to varying degrees, is covered in ice and frost.
Yeah.
And she's just sort of got her arms around, like she's a little bit cold. Like it's a cold, you know, autumn night. And everybody, there's a guy dead next to them.
Yeah, and then the guy that just snaps his toe off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just ice.
You know, the only bit of exposition I think that was a bit silly was, like, Calypso, Tiadama, and Davy Jones have that scene, and he asks her why she didn't show up. And I'm like, motherfucker, it was like 100 years ago. You're asking her now. You never tracked her down and sussed it out with her. You just threw a hissy fit and cut your heart out.
Yeah.
Then, or maybe he always had his heart cut out. I don't know how. It explains it in the second one.
Yeah.
But we didn't see it here.
Yep.
So we can't talk about it. But that was one scene where I was like, did they really need to be talking about stuff that this conversation should have happened already, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but or maybe, and this is what I think we theorized, but I thought it was pretty obvious, when the heart is closest to him, that is when he's the most human.
Yeah.
So he's playing the piano like he always does, and that, but then a tear forms on his face, and gets really angry, and then he yells, and then he comes out, and the heart is on the ship.
Yeah.
And the heart in the chest is on the ship, and he's furious.
Yeah.
And this movie, he gets very flustered and very, you know, very easily thrown off balance mentally and emotionally. And I love the scene where he comes in and Will is there with Beckett, and he's like, I could not be summoned by something pup. And then he's like, yeah, you can.
Yeah,
clearly.
Apparently you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's all just...
Yeah, he gets flustered and shakes his head a lot and doesn't know what to say.
Yeah, and as soon as they mention Calypso, he's just, like, all evil or, like, fear you would have for him is sort of thrown away, in a good way.
Yeah.
Thrown away as soon as they mention Calypso.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, he just freaks out. And I love the bit where he says something to Will. I can't remember what it is, and Will has some
sassy comment.
Some comment, and he just smacks his drink out of his hand.
It was like, I wasn't done with that.
And he just, and like he, in the second movie, I know he has his catchphrase, "Do you fear death?" And it's quite well delivered, but he overuses that in this.
Yeah.
Like there's one good bit where Norrington dies and he says it, and that's well done. But then when Jack gets traded off right at the end to them, and he just leans in and says it again anyway, and it's like, we get it, dude.
Yeah.
We get it.
In the second one, I remember him being like so scary. And this one, he wasn't as scary, but like we said, it's probably because the heart is closer to him.
Well, that's what I think.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
That's what I took from it. That because in the second one, it is like a horror movie a lot of the time. You know, he is just this presence, and he doesn't feel, and he thinks, but he's I'm not even really like, he's very intelligent, so I shouldn't say unthinking, but like an unfeeling monster.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really get angry, from what I can remember, but he's just like, you've got a black spot, I'll come get you. But in this, he's like, Calypso!
Yeah. Much more emotion he shows in this movie. Yeah.
And he clearly still loves Calypso so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I really like a good tragic love story. You know, there's two of them in this. Calypso and Davy Jones. It shows what happens when a man falls in love with a goddess and becomes very toxic about it. It's interesting that they chose Calypso because Calypso originally comes from Greek mythology. She was in Homer's Odyssey, where Odysseus was trapped on an island with her, and she was a sea nymph, or maybe just a nymph, but I think a sea nymph, and she trapped him there for 7 years and made him build a boat, but she cast the wind behind his back to get him home and all that. So it fits with what they're doing here. And Calypso, I should have written it down, but it means to conceal and something else. But yeah, to conceal is one of the things which works here. You know, she's very mysterious.
Yeah.
She doesn't want people knowing that she's Calypso.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when Sao Fang when he thinks that Elizabeth is Calypso, he's like, I'll ask if she'll offer her gifts. And if she says no, I think I'll just rape her.
Yeah.
He just lunges at her and she barely fends him off. You know, it takes her a minute to push him back. And then as soon as she does, she's very lucky that a cannonball hits the ship and wipes him out. Yeah. And I mean, he's a pirate, so no surprise there.
Yeah.
And like Barbossa says, he's just like me, but he doesn't have my sense of honor or fair play.
Yeah.
I think he says, or
something like
that. Basically, he's like Barbossa, who, if you've seen the Verse movie, is terrifying, and he will kill without a second thought. But he also has that sort of gentler side, and Sao Fang doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, no.
What I was talking about before with like gods and monsters and stuff, and man and time change and all that coming through and wiping them out, is Cutler Beckett orders, under pain of death, I guess you'd say, Davy Jones to kill the Kraken. And the Kraken in the second movie was like just this presence. Where you were like, at any moment, the Kraken could just show up and wipe everyone out.
Yeah.
They're hugging islands to stay out of deep water, to stay away from the Kraken. And in this, you hear that it's dead, and you're like, why, how'd he do that? And then they find it washed up on shore. And it's just this massive dead octopus squid thing. And you're just like,
huge.
Yeah, and that's the scene where Barbossa and Jack are like, that's when it really clicks for Jack that, like, Beckett can do that.
Yeah.
He can make the Kraken get killed.
Yeah.
And, you know, because the Kraken was like the big thing in the second movie. It was like the big physical antagonist, I suppose you'd say, whereas in this it's Davy Jones. Just horrifying stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a pretty common theme in pirate movies, in adventure movies, in cowboy movies, you know, the last, or the dying breed. But this is like, it leads that way and then they turn it around and pirates come out on top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, in this, the pirates aren't like most of them aren't like we'll go pillage a town, rape the women, kill the children, kill the men, burn some houses down, take what we want, and get out of there. They're more just like, we want to be free, and we'll attack you if you try to suppress us.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're a little bit better than the Navy, or not even the Navy, the East India Company, who are just like, do what we say or we'll kill you. So,
Yeah, but even still, like, the pirates are constantly betraying each other. Like we said before, how they all went to shoot each other.
Yeah, and they pretty much all just hate each other. The only ones that kind of like other people are Cotton, Pintel, and Rigetti.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the little bald guy.
I can't remember either.
Yeah, I can't. I thought I had it written down, but apparently not. But yeah, I only remember Cotton because it just stuck in my head when he said Cotton and Cotton's parrot.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think they're the only, other than the main cast, I think they're the only other ones from, and Norrington and the two sailors that have been since the start.
Yeah.
Because, like, pretty much all the other pirates from the Black Pearl were killed.
Yeah.
At the end of the first one. And then it was only those few that came back for the second one. And then Cotton, actually, he wasn't part of the Black Pearl crew. Because some of them were, like, Jack made a new... and Gibbs. Sorry. Mr. Gibbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're some of the more nice pirates, even though Pintel and Rigetti, if you've seen the first one, were kind of horrible.
Yeah.
But they were always dumb. But then I think... Sorry.
They have got a lot nicer.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. I suppose... And Barbossa is even a bit nicer in this. When they're introduced in the first one, that's when they're undead.
Yeah.
And they can't taste food or drink. They're always thirsty and they can never quench it. They're always hungry and they can never quench it. They can't feel the wind. They can't feel pain. They can't feel warmth or cold or anything. So
they're
you
just
would
cranky.
be just a psychopath.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. I was trying to remember it. So in this movie, Will makes a deal with Xiao Fang to deliver Jack after they bring him back from, like, so Xiao Fang gives him a ship so they can go get Jack and bring him, and then Will gets the pearl, and then he's going to amass a crew and go fight Davy Jones.
Yeah.
And then Xiao Fang has also made a deal with Beckett to give all of them up, other than him, obviously, to the East India Company. And then that's where Jack makes a deal with Beckett.
Yeah.
To go to the Brethren Court and encourage them to fight so that Beckett can kill them all.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, Calypso has a deal with
Barbossa.
That she brought him back from the dead so that he could bring...
He could release her.
He could release her, but he has to bring Jack back from the dead, and he's in the locker. So that she'll let him live, because she could just snap her fingers and he'd be dead. Because she still has powers, but she's trapped in human form.
Yeah, so they're not as strong.
Yeah. And then, stay with me. And then, there's not really any shady deals for a while. But then Will is leading Beckett to them, so Jack knocks him... then they all get away, and Davy Jones goes after Xiao Fang, who has Elizabeth, because Barbossa makes a deal with him to give him Elizabeth.
Yeah. And he thinks she's Calypso.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they're going to meet at the Brethren Court. And then, Jesus Christ, Jack knocks Will overboard on one of his barrels so that he can make a deal with Beckett to give him the compass to find his way to Shipwreck Cove, or Will lead him there or something, so that Jack's plan will work so he gets away, even though Beckett was always going to betray him. And then Xiaofeng dies and makes makes Elizabeth. Oh god, there's so many things that happen in this movie when you talk about it. Elizabeth, captain.
Yeah.
And then she is voted because there's a vote in the Brethren Court. Jack votes for her as well, so she gets 2 votes. The only person who got more than 1 because everybody votes for themselves.
Yeah.
And she becomes Pirate King. So then they parlay when they see that the East India Company has an armada because she wants to fight.
Yeah.
Then they find out that Will has gone off with Beckett. Well, yeah, Jack already knew. And then Elizabeth makes a deal to trade Jack for Will, and Barbossa strikes him with his sword to cut off his piece of 8, which is just a random trinket like they all have, so that he can fulfill his deal
to release Calypso.
But he betrays Elizabeth because she's like, oh, we shouldn't do this, and he's like, too long, fate hasn't been in me own hands, no longer.
Yeah.
And then they release Calypso. But before they do, Will tells Calypso, who had planned to kill the Brethren Court because she just blames all them, that it was actually Davy Jones who taught the first Brethren Court about 100 years or so back, that Davy Jones was the one who taught them how to bind her in human form.
Yeah.
So it's his fault because they never would have been able to do it without Davy Jones.
Yeah. And then she's furious.
So she had told Davy Jones she was going to wipe him out, but instead she makes a thing because she's like, I don't care who dies.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody at that point has done all their deals, except then they beat Davy Jones. Will becomes the new Davy Jones. He becomes Will Turner. I suppose he gets Will Turner's locker now.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Yeah, is it Will Turner's locker?
It must be, because I suppose it's like he ferries the dead, and then if there's any particularly evil people, he can just send them to the locker. And then Beckett is gonna destroy the Black Pearl and kill Jack to renege on his deal, but Jack was counting on Will to come back and help them.
Yeah. So, a lot of deals and betrayals.
A lot of deals and betrayals.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think I'm missing anything else.
I'm not sure.
No, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's probably that's appropriate.
Yeah, because
that's what you'd think that they'd be doing.
Yeah.
It's never just one set plan and that's what you're doing. It's constant deals, constant betrayals, whatever's going to suit you best and benefit you the most.
Yeah. And everybody is their own little flavour of pirate, which I like. You know, Barbossa clearly has bigger ambitions for being well regarded as like this big pirate lord and everything.
Yeah.
And Jack, like we said, just wants to live and be on the ocean. Will wants to save his father, and Elizabeth wants it all to go away so her and Will can be together.
Yeah.
And nobody really gets what they want.
No, not really.
Will dies and then becomes the ferryman of the dead.
Seas.
Yeah, the Lord of the Seas or whatever he's called. Calypso gets free, so that's good, but she
has the knowledge.
The Davy Jones betrayed her.
Yeah.
Davy Jones dies. Beckett,
which is good.
Yeah,
everyone.
Beckett dies. The curse is lifted, so as long as Will does the right thing, he and his crew aren't all fish people. That's good. He's reunited with his dad, which is nice. But Elizabeth and Will can only see each other one day every 10 years.
Yeah. So it's like everyone got what they want, but kind of like the worst version of what they wanted.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, you know, Jack got his ship back, but then it was stolen by Barbossa again.
Yeah.
But Jack has the charts to the Fountain of Youth, which are false. On that map, it says Florida, but they're on an island somewhere in the next movie. So I suppose there's a different director and everything. But, Yeah, I don't have too much more to talk about. I like the idea of the Brethren Court, and it's based on a real thing. I don't know the name of it, but it's based on like a real court of pirates who would convene and talk about the state of what's going on. Not like this, where they're pirate lords. They're just well-known pirates who would meet up and talk about it. Maybe like marking off territories like they do in this. But in this, they have... Oh, man, I can't remember. It's like... the whole world. Whereas in real life, it wouldn't have been...
It would just be that area.
Yeah, it would have been the Caribbean or Caribbean, if you say it that way, but Caribbean sounds way better, I reckon. I really like how in the first movie, you know, they're up against undead pirates. And then in the second movie, they're up against sort of undead fish pirate people and the East India Company and the Kraken, same as this, but in this it's just so much more wild. I maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I remembered as the first one being it's the best one in my opinion, but it's like a pretty
small
cut and dry like swashbuckling pirate adventure movie. You know, and then the second one is like a horror movie for pirates. And then this one is just so grand and epic, and they're saving not even the world. Like they don't even save the world in this. They're still saving themselves. But it's sort of like a battle for freedom and all that sort of thing. But I really like how they just go to the underworld. They just make a trek to Davy Jones Locker.
Yeah, that was really cool. And it's just a big, long, giant salt lake? Salt flats.
They filmed that in the real salt flats in is it Utah?
I think so.
Yeah. And, you know, there's an ocean and there's mountains and that, but I think it's like a pocket dimension. This is a very magical world.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's very, very
so
interesting.
Cool.
Oh yeah, I really like it. I think that it's a lot more like ancient, like the old gods style in this movie. I haven't seen the fifth one, but the fourth one is a little bit like that, but it looks a lot different. It has a very different style to it. It felt a lot less old gods to me.
Yeah, I don't really remember the movies after this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
I remember the first three.
Yeah.
And then,
the first three were all directed by Gore Verbinski.
Yeah.
And the first one has its own sort of style. But then when it was a success, I think that Disney and Jerry Bruckheimer were like, yeah, go crazy, man.
Yeah, ramp it up.
Yeah, you clearly know what you're doing here. And I think that really shows, because Gore Verbinski is quite talented, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
Also, his name is Gore.
Yeah.
So,
like, is that his real name?
I don't know, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's cool. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Overall, a brilliant movie.
Mm-hmm.
Every aspect of this movie was top notch.
I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that it delivers everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, even though pretty much every character in this movie is a little bit of a scumbag, out to serve themselves. They're not really out to save anyone else, even though there's like a big speech that Elizabeth does pretty good. I was thinking before we sat down to talk that Keira Knightley might be like the one weak link, but then I'm like, no, I think that she does a really good job as well.
Yeah.
I think it's just that she has like resting, disgusted face.
That face she does.
And
the typical Keira Knightley face.
Yeah.
I think it's just because, like, she's not the same as the others because she hasn't been doing it for as long as them.
Yeah.
So it's not that she's weak, it's just she's still learning.
You mean as an actor or the character?
The character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they all just seem so ingrained in the world.
Yeah, that's
and she's
their
always
life.
like, ugh, all the time.
Yeah, she's still learning as she's going.
Yeah, because for the first, I don't know what it is, like 20 years of her life, She was in Trapped. Well, not Trapped, but you know what I mean. In that pampered life.
Yeah.
And wanted nothing to do with it. And is happy as. But it's just a lot dirtier, I think, than she expected.
Yeah.
Like, when she has all the guns on her at the start, and the Chinese pirates in Singapore, Reggie Lee is like, remove. Would you think we wouldn't suspect her because she's a woman? And I was like, that's good. That's that's progressive thinking.
Yeah.
You know, women can be backstabbing bastards as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's good. And then they're like, remove
everything.
And she's just wearing a very small
robe,
robe blouse thing. And then Rigetti is like, hey, these with the wooden eye. He's like, hey, check this out. And Pintel goes over to him, and she moves, and this big fat guy standing there. And he's like, oh,
yeah. The subtle comedy in this movie, I really liked. Yeah,
like just before that, where they all have like coconuts or something
when they
on
walk
their
into
heads.
the water.
Yeah, and then they have like the straws out of their mouths, and except for Pintel, who's just bald.
Yeah, so he didn't have to wear one. Yeah. The comedy is like, it's there and it's subtle. It's never over the top, and it never lingers for too long.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it the funniest. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
for
a little
sure.
giggle every now and then.
Yeah.
Through a pretty crazy, wild movie.
Yeah, that's probably a better way of putting it when what you said than what I said before with like they're all their own like different flavor of pirate, where it's not really ever homogenized. You know, the only person who really makes heaps of quips is Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
And that's his character.
Yeah.
And Barbossa is very serious but very outlandish at the same time, and you know, he's kind of on that road to being like a Jack Sparrow type, but he's a lot more aggressive about it.
Yeah, much
He's
more
got too
serious.
he's got too much pride
Yeah.
to let himself be seen as an idiot, where everybody sees Jack Sparrow as this moron, but people like Barbossa who really know him knows that he's a genius.
Yeah.
And that he's always working some sort of scam, and he's always twisting people's minds, and that sounds really malicious, but I mean, they're all out to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and everybody's got things going on, and I really like that there's nobody in this is just here for what's going on, except for maybe Barbossa, because he just got brought back from the dead. But even he is doing stuff behind the scenes and presenting it in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie was just really good.
Yeah, it was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
not the smartest movie in the world.
Yeah.
But it's not dumb. It's easy to follow.
Yep.
It's, if you've got a fair bit of spare time, or even if you just want to watch some good action scenes, you can just find them on YouTube or something. But I would say, yeah, sit down and watch the whole thing in one go if you can, if you have 3 hours of spare time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Well, if it wasn't already obvious, I rate this cash.
Absolutely, me too. Cash.
Yeah. Well deserved.
Yes. Part of me was like, oh, you know, it's this big Hollywood movie, and I was like, Cecil B. Demented got in my head. But it's good and it's fun.
Yeah.
And it's original.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's it was good to go back to this a time before the MCU, and I say that as somebody who loves and adores the MCU. It's good to go back to a time where something else was the biggest thing at the box office.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I don't even mean like 20 years ago, like we've done. Like, this is the year before Iron Man.
Yeah.
So this is the last. Well, I mean, it wasn't until the Avengers when they were the highest grossing, but like the MCU movies. But this was the last movie before the MCU.
Of,
yeah.
Yeah.
Cash it is.
Very
Cash.
Cash money, baby.
Cash money, baby. All right, well, that wraps up our review, retrospective, little chat. We don't like to think ourselves too much as critics, more just people who like movies.
Yeah.
and like chatting about them.
Sharing our opinion.
Yeah, and if you've enjoyed this episode, if you've made it this far, why don't you tell them where else they can find us, Demi?
We'd really appreciate it if you'd like to support us. You can do this by signing up to our Patreon. You can follow us on Instagram. Our handle is @CashVersusTrashPod. And you can also listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. All the links will be in the description, so you can just follow them there.
Yep, and we really appreciate a like, subscribe, ring the bell, rate, review, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening on. That really helps us out.
Yeah.
If you don't have any money for Patreon, that's fine. Just please give us likes and shares or anything like that. Anything at all. Just listening is great, but we really appreciate all of those things. And if you want to get in contact with us directly, you can message us on Instagram, but the best place to do it would be to email us at cashversustrashpod@gmail.com. I've got that set up, so I'd see it instantly. It's on my phone, comes straight through to me, and you can. That's not to say that you have to direct them at me for both of us, and we might do, if we get enough of them, we might do an episode where we read them out and talk about them, and it's early days yet. We would do like at the end of every episode, but these are recorded 2-3, I think it's going to be about 4 weeks early. We've been that brings us to the end of the episode. That was part 1 of 2007, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. Up next is the lowest grossing movie of 2007, the sequel to a hit, Daddy Day Camp. I've never seen it.
I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I think we've got it on DVD here.
No, we've got Daddy Daycare, because I've seen that a million times. It's fantastic. I've never seen this.
I think I have. I think I might have seen it once.
If we've got it on DVD, good.
I think I've definitely seen it.
Yeah.
Tune in next week.
Yeah, I was gonna say what is it like, but maybe don't say anything.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thanks very much for listening. This has been the Cash versus Trash podcast.
See ya.